spent the last nearly a decade studying teams from different industries, from different sectors, both in for-profit companies and not-for-profit companies. In fact, a lot of the work I do today involves teams in different regards. And throughout my studies and my work, what I've really done is been able to identify what are the key attributes of teams who are high-performing versus those who are not. And from my perspective, if your team's not high-performing, whether they're mediocre or low-performing doesn't matter. We want all teams to be high-performing. So, considering that, I wanted to share with you some of the attributes that I've identified from those teams who are high-performing, and then if you can hang on for a minute, I'll give you another example to kind of tie this in and help you bring you into my frame, so to speak, of what I'm thinking of here. So, thinking about those teams that are high-performing, there's a few different characteristics or attributes I've noticed. First off, the teams elect an unofficial leader. So what's an unofficial leader? Those are the individuals that tend to rise. They're the cream of the crop. They rise out from the team, and they tend to be spokespersons for those teams. Years ago, I managed a team of people, about 25 different individuals back in my corporate life, I guess about 15, 20 years ago now. And it was interesting. Every week I would do a team meeting where we'd sit around this big table, a big circle, and what would happen is John would sit to my right every single time, and John would bring in a stack of papers and information, and everybody else would just come in with a pen, a pencil, nothing else. And when I would finish going through a few key items, I'd go around the circle to ask what questions, concerns you have, and I'd always start with John, and John would have a list. He'd bring out the list and say, okay, number one, what about this? Number two, what about that? After about 15 minutes of John's issues, what was interesting is I'd go to the next person, and nobody else had anything to say, because John was speaking on their behalf, and they were quite comfortable with that. So you need to identify within the teams those unofficial leaders so you as a business leader or manager or business owner can work with them and help influence that team. Secondly, in a high-performing team, work is very visible. People want to understand what they're working on today, where that's at relative to all the other work that has to be done, and what's coming down the pipeline. They simply want visibility to what's happening, how much work's behind them, because the more they know about what work is coming at them, the more they'll govern their own pace. They become self-managed relative to their pace of work. Thirdly, the environment in which they work is agile. What I mean by that is when changes are necessary to improve productivity, to make things better, to make a change on a form even, employees don't have to take their ideas and recommendations to a supervisor who takes them to a manager, and then you wait for something to change, a new process to be written. That's ridiculous. The work environment itself needs to be agile. If changes are necessary, employees can make those changes on the fly, which helps them be more productive. Lastly, the environment itself is very collaborative. Decisions are made by the team, by individuals within the team. So if there has to be a decision made or a change that happens, people get together very quickly, make a decision, agree upon it, and move forward. If individuals themselves can't participate, they send a representative from the team. So the entire environment is built around sharing ideas and collectively coming to agreement on decisions. So the last thing I want to leave you with is a brief example here. Think about an apple orchard. A tree that has more than 90% good yield as far as apples go is considered a high-performing tree. A tree that has less than 90% of yield relative to apples is not such a high-performing tree. And there'll be a certain amount of time and effort spent on trying to bring that tree to a higher yield, more fertilizer, cut down bad branches. But eventually, if that tree does not yield greater than 90%, it's chopped down, it's put out of commission, so to speak. You don't want your team, or you as their leader, to be put out of commission. You need to make sure you're focusing on building a high-performing team. And from my studies and my experience, I think you'll find these 4 areas will help you tremendously in achieving high performance relative to your team.